knows and he's arguing with at that time. Further down, progressive German Jews, that's Reform Jews, seem to think they have sufficient reason for recoiling from any Jewish national expression. See, here's the start of the recoiling from the recoiling. You know, we've had 40 years of recoiling from any national expression of any kind, and so on. Because of the hatred that surrounds him, this progressive Jew on all sides, the German Jew is determined to cast off all signs of his Jewishness, to deny his race. I think we better hear nationality people that race has an ugly meaning today. No reform of the Jewish religion, however extreme, is radical enough for the educated German Jews. This is what you're talking to me about, the German Jews, the educated ones. Reform for them, you know, nothing is too extreme as such. But you see, even the conversion doesn't relieve them of the German anti-Semitism, and we see that in Wagner's evaluation of people like Mendelssohn. Heine converted too, but then he reconverted. He was ashamed of the fact that he had converted. The Germans hate the religion of the Jews less than they hate their race. They hate the peculiar faith of Jews less than their noses. That's true. You see it in the German writings of these people, you know, that we've read, and Wagner and some of the others. Reform, conversion, education, emancipation, none of these open the gates to German society, to the German Jew. Hence his desire to deny his racial origins. He quotes a book, Physiological Sketches, tells how the son of a converted Jew, just like Afro-Americans have done in America, used to spend hours every morning at the looking glass, comb in hand, endeavoring to straighten his curly hair, so to give it a more Teutonic appearance. I don't know, I never had any curly hair, so I don't have that problem. You know? I don't know what that problem is all about, frankly. The radical reform movement in Appalachian, which characterized it, see, I don't usually give my background in classes because I don't want people to use it against me. An appellation which characterizes it very well because it puts the axe to the root of Judaism, to the national historic character of its religion. And that's what we've just been talking about. He is aware of all these things and disagrees with it. It has little chance of success, and the tendency of some Jews to deny their racial descent is equally foredoomed to failure. Well, that unfortunately turned out to be prophetic, because 100 years or less than 100 years later, in the 1930s and 40s, we found out what the German program was going to be in those harsh times. As long as he denies his nationality, he lacks the character to acknowledge that he belongs. I mean, it's easy for Hess to say it. He's having suddenly returned, but anyway, he's writing it, and he's a good writer. His false position must become ever more intolerable. What purpose does this deception serve? The nations of Europe have always regarded the existence of Jews in their midst as an anomaly, a peculiarity. We should always remain strangers among these nations. It's true in Europe that's the case. I don't think it's the case in America to that extent, but maybe somewhat. They may even be moved by a sense of humanity and justice to emancipate us, which is happening, obviously, this time. But they will never respect us as long as we make I think basically wherever good is, that's my country, our guiding principle, indeed almost a religion, and forget or place it above our great national memories. So the really dishonorable Jew is not the old pious type, the one who would not let his tongue be cut from his mouth rather than utter a word of denial of his people or nation, but the modern kind, who is ashamed of his nationality because the hand of fate is pressing heavily upon his people. Well, this is sort of like a communist manifesto, but for the Jewish people. There's a lot in here to look at. I'm going to have to speed up here. So, but you get the point. These modern Jews hide in vain behind. So he sees the situation even in 60. He sees the situation, and he sees what's going on. it's interesting that he should be able to see that so clearly when it takes us maybe another 60, 70, 80 years. He talks about what you were asking about, the Messianic age, Christianity here. You can read that here. However, I never believed and I've never asserted that Christianity is the ultimate stage of the sacred history of humanity, or that this sacred history found its consummation in Spinoza. You see how important Spinoza was to these people at this time. I still believe this final epoch in universal history first became manifest in the spiritual life of the man with the appearance of Spinoza. Now, I personally haven't even read Spinoza's work all through, and I'm sure most of you haven't either. So I don't even know what he sees in Spinoza that's so new and important. But there's clearly something there, and after you guys have read it, you can tell me, okay? I just don't have time to read everything, and I'll let you read some of it. It is certain that our present yearning is for redemption, and that's what you ask, a far broader outline than any that Christianity imagined or could have imagined. Well, I'm not sure if that's the case, but he's writing to the Jews after all. And again, the Italians are inspiring them. On the ruins of Christian Rome, a regenerated Italian people is arising, what's called the Risorgimento in Italy. And these countries which form the dividing line 123 between Occident and Orient, namely Russia, Poland, Prussia, Austria, Turkey. You see, one of the problems here again is that these countries already have nationalities. And they're not so mixed as America, so the Jews unfortunately stand out in these countries. Millions of our brethren live there. No more. See how things have changed. Millions of our brethren, there are almost none except Russia. Because the Russians fought, and therefore Hitler, as far as Hitler got, he exterminated. If he didn't get far enough, he didn't exterminate. So, you know, Stalingrad stopped him. Moscow, Stalingrad, Kursk, those were the turning points on the Eastern Front. Moscow, if you know the history, 1941, Stalingrad, 42, Kursk, 43. Or maybe, yeah, I think it's 43, 44, Kursk, the biggest tank battle in the history of mankind, actually, where the Russians destroyed the German Panzer Corps. The vast battles took place in the Russian theater of operations that make our puny efforts in World War II, in the Western Front anyway, rather secondary. And the big battles were fought in Russia.